Yes, this is Ted Bundy. We've gone over the ride in 1967 at Jeb Stuart Junior High School, and now I'm having to go back in my mind 45, well, 45, I'm going to say, to 52 years. And I'm a Floridian, born in Pensacola, lived my life in Jacksonville. When you say skiing, my first thought is water skiing. I have an anathema to snow. My grandmother died in about 1969 and she was buried in Roslyn, New Jersey, with her first husband, Carl Adolf Stelzer. She had a heart issue. She almost wasn't allowed into the country in the 20s because she had rheumatic fever and it caused some kind of heart issue. But she went on to give birth to three. My mom was born in 26. My uncle Walter, another Walter, was born in, say, 1930, and then maybe Carl was born maybe 1932. They're all deceased. But anyway, um, we had to go to this funeral in the snow. And we're talking about the ground being frozen. So it was horrible. And I was wearing like Mary Jane's. I was probably not young. Well, maybe 14 or 15, 1969. I guess it would have been maybe 15. I don't know. But we went up there and the snow was pattering and pattering on the house and playing out in it and making like an igloo out in the yard. And we had somebody had crocheted afghans and stuff. But anyway, at the funeral itself, you had to stand and stand and stand, and those little patent leather Mary Jane shoes were freezing. And I said, and the snow seemed gray and yellow, and I didn't like it. But anyway, I remember Rebecca. And at various times, like during the holidays or something, I might go visit Miss Weiss. And I think Rebecca was there, and she mentioned going out to Colorado to ski at some point until her knee had some kind of meniscus tear. It was never an allure to me. It was never something. When people would say water ski, I thought that's what they were talking about at first. I wasn't jealous. I just listening to the story. She had a meniscus tear. Maybe it had something to do with her boyfriend that she had. I don't know. That's the reason she would go there. At a point, Julia, the girl that rode with me in the Volkswagen, and her sister, Barbara. I guess let's say Barbara's now 19 and maybe Julia's 15. So years later, their father, that looked like Lee Majors, the commander at NASA, gave them a semester in Austria. Well, Austria is all about skiing, right? I mean, it's a trip to here. She got to do a semester there. And I remember talking about that at one point when I went down to Miss Weiss, Sue Weiss. And I remember her saying, well, we're going to get to do a semester in Europe or something. That's all about skiing. Now, if the parliamentarians, please, if she gave him their phone number and there was some kind of relationship with Theodore Bundy, if you'll notice after these events, he kind of goes haywire and he's working in hotel motels like Cecilia, who worked in the heart of Jacksonville. He met an older lady who he befriended when he was in Olympia or wherever he was working. I don't know, Seattle. He worked at the Olympic Hotel, which is like the heart of Jacksonville, right? And he was a valet. And he also wanted to be a lumberjack, which would have been like cutting the trees down in Confederate Point. There was strange thing. And then he told his friend, you need to give me a ride to the airport because I'm going to Colorado to be a ski instructor. Who would need instruction in skiing? See, I never thought about Barbara, Julia, and Cece traveling. Cece traveled because she said she went somewhere and they burnt their bras. In 1968 or 69, in Atlantic City, the Miss America pageant, there was a big demonstration and people were burning their underwear and their bras. And she said she had burned her bra. So what I'm thinking, and I never thought about them traveling around, but who would need to learn how to ski? Some sisters from Florida? I mean, if this relationship continued, he said, I'm going to Colorado to be a ski instructor. Well, he would have been an instructor to his friends who had traveled there to visit with him. Somebody needs to scratch the surface of this relationship. And we're talking about a period from June of 67 through who knows how far. And nobody down here knew that this person that we ran across was out murdering people. Nobody knew. I didn't know till 78, and I had left JSO and I saw that little FBI poster. I think it was in the Florida Times-Union. And I ran around to Sue Weiss and I said, my God, this is the guy we rode with. And it was kind of anticlimactic. It's like, you know, please, someone needs to look into this a little bit. You know, there could be a child that's 52 or 53. The child was supposed to be stillborn, and they were talking about false pregnancy. You don't hear that anymore. Like the dog had a false pregnancy or something. You know, I'm thinking, Cece was not false. She was pregnant, and that would have been 68 or 69. I'm just saying, after the ride, and she gives him her phone number, what kind of contact is that? That's why she doesn't want this out. She admits the ride, but it's like, there's some kind of, I don't want my family's name associated. What my family's name associated with him? Well, how could your family's name be associated with him? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, this is part 5. And, you know how hard it is to go in the recesses of your mind. You say, well, I went down to see Sue Weiss on a holiday. And Julia and Rebecca were there talking about, torn meniscus. And Sonny Bono crashed into a tree. I never had any kind of affinity. I'd love to go and run the trails and go to a running camp. Running's been my thing. I never even ice skated. My mom had some ice skates hanging in a shed in Philadelphia, and I think I saw a snow, what are those things called? A sled. Yes, I think I saw a sled, and I think I saw some skis, leather skis from the 30s hanging in a shed. But personally, no, thank you. I don't like snow that much. I like to see it. It's very beautiful. It's very beautiful in postcards. I don't want to be skating around. The closest I ever came to thinking about skiing was in the 80s when I was working at IRS. I thought there was a magazine article. It wasn't Runner's World, but some other magazine I was reading. And there was a place called the Wisconsin Dells. And they had like little short skis. You didn't go downhill per se. And were sort of like little short skis, and you had sticks, and they would go out and they would sort of trek across the countryside until they came to these railroad cabins, and there would be beef stew and chili and, what is that stuff called? Anyway, like hot potato soup or something, and you come to these, and you paid for it, and maybe the first day you did 5 miles, and then 7, and then 10, and then 15 miles. And for your week vacation, you would go from one cabin to another cabin cross-country skiing, but you was more like trekking. You didn't have to worry about going ass loud down, break your hip or your leg or something. And I noticed that Rebecca, of all people, had a torn meniscus and talked about Sonny Bono. But I'm just thinking that little trip would have been right in the time frame. It said, I'm going to go instruct people in skiing. Well, yeah. 2 girls from Florida, possibly Cece, Barbara, and Julia or something. Okay, you tell me. Somebody needs to scratch the surfaces and see what the contact with that family was. This was before Liz Clover. This was a little period before, and he always had other people. He always had somebody in the back pocket. So I think he made friends with the family. I personally do. I can't prove that, And when you go to touch on that aspect of it, oh my God. All right, thank you.